Hello everyone, welcome to Understanding Learning Trends online conference. Today for session 201 we have Empathy, Engagement, and Effectiveness, a Path to Success. Today's presentation has the speakers of David Linder, co-founder and creative director of Sublime Media, and Christy Blaze, executive director, L&D of Business Engagement for Comcast. With that, I'm going to turn things over to David. David, when you're ready to begin, please do so.
No worries. Just want to make sure everybody's in the right place. All righty, let's get started. So, hello everyone. I am David Linder. I am the co-founder and creative director at Sublime Media. I'm coming to you from Seattle, and like many of you, I imagine, I am working out of my home. I know that we're spending a lot of time staring at screens these days. So a big thank you to everyone who's choosing to spend some more with us today. Sublime Media is the creative agency for learning. We create online training. So instead of prepackaged training, we look at the specific details of each project and we craft learning. We're consultants. We help people tell their stories in meaningful ways. Now, I'm a tabletop gamer. I love playing board games. It's much harder in the time of quarantine, but I feel like you get a real good true sense of who someone is when you play games with them. Many of you might be familiar with fill in the blanks kind of card game, like Cards Against Humanity or Apples to Apples. So like a card like this, like you're seeing, one person puts out a card with a sentence to be finished, just like this one. Training is like blank. And everyone else puts down a card that they have in their hands, usually something funny to finish the sentence. So I want to play this card with you. And I want you to think about the average employee out there. How would the average employee fill in this blank if you said to them, it's time to take some corporate training? So we're going to put that little answer up there. Go ahead, Karen, you can put that up there.
I pulled over a short answer poll here and overlaid that card. And we're going to take your suggestions here and your answers and responses of what training is like, and then we will broadcast the results, and so we'll all look at them at the same time. So just take a few seconds and think about that as to what training is like. And we see some good answers coming in, all kinds of different things coming in from everybody, some funny ones and some really great ones. And we'll leave that go for a few more seconds. I know it takes a little while to type things in, and we want to make sure that we get a lot of good answers here. I'm just going to extend it as more and more people have answered. And some of them are interesting. And I think, are we ready to broadcast, David?
Yeah, go ahead and put that up there.
Sure thing. All right, so now everyone can see the results.
Okay, so take a look at what we got there. So it's a mix. There's some good ones in there. I'm poking my eyes with a fork. Ouch. A bad dream that lasts too long, and you just wish it was over. Yeah. Okay, Karen. Now let's go back to my presentation. Okay, so yeah, this was a card. I actually did this little exercise. I do this in person a lot of places where I talk. And this was a card I got, A Hopeless Amount of Spiders. And unfortunately, it does seem to align to some of the same things that we just saw from you. You know, and a lot of the other cards that I usually get, they're in line. They're kind of very similar to Hopeless Amounts of Spiders. Now, one other card I got, I think sums up the state of training well. And this was it. It was a box without hinges, key, or lid, yet golden treasure inside is hid. It's actually a Cards Against Humanity card, one of the cleaner ones. It described kind of the issue with training so well for me. There's like something great we have, but for some reason, it's trapped. People can't get to it. And we know if they're not getting what they need, they're operating with skill gaps, their work is harder than it needs to be. So what it really means is that training is frustrating rather than empowering. And, we have the data to know that there is a real problem out there. Less than a third of American employees say they are emotionally and enthusiastically committed to their job and where they work. And there's a big cost with that. These statistics, by the way, from pre-COVID. So I imagine they're not much greater today. So, of course, I'm not here to say training I'm not here to put the entire blame on training. I am here to say that training can work for employees instead of against them. What I'm really here to say is that our job as trainers is to open that box, to figure out how to open it. Our job is effective training. It's training that gets people what they really need, that connects people with their jobs and the companies they work with. So my goal in this session is to inspire you to convince budget holders, stakeholders, subject matter experts, and even other trainers that we have an opportunity to contribute to employee commitment and success. There are two keys that we have found opens the box: empathy and engagement. These two strategies are the foundations of successful training. How do I know that they work? Well, we can measure it. So here's a stat that most corporate learning departments rely on: training completions. It's like the ratings book. You get like the Nielsen book for TV. How many eyeballs do we have? These particular stats are from Comcast University. So for those of you unfamiliar, Comcast is number 28 on the Fortune 500 list. They own NBC Universal, Sky TV, a lot of channels, entertainment platforms, things like Peacock. They offer cable TV, internet, home security, mobile through their Xfinity brand. So you can see here from 2018 to 2019 a massive leap in completions. So did they just make all training mandatory? No, actually the opposite. And it's an irony of our job as trainers that even mandatory training doesn't always increase completions, not to mention that requiring everyone to take everything is just not feasible. 2018 was the year that we helped Comcast redefine its product training strategy. And I'm going to use that program as a case study to talk about the drivers of change, those two keys, empathy and engagement. So every story has a beginning. And to tell it, I've asked Christy Blaze, the Vice President of Learning at Comcast, to join us. So Christy, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and talk about where Comcast University was and where product training was in 2018 before we were able to transform it. I'm going to hand it to Christy for a few minutes.
Thanks, David. And you guys are spot on. I love the example that David gave. And when I joined Comcast many moons ago, so I'm actually a longtime Comcaster, started in 2005, and actually in sales and marketing. And one of the, before that, I came over to Comcast University, as David mentioned, in 2015. And my responsibilities are to help grow knowledge for the residential product suite amongst all of our Comcast cable employees, which that number is near 80,000, as well as I lead learning for our advertising group, which both supports our stateside or U.S.-based employees, but we also have an international footprint when we think about selling our Comcast advertising services across the globe. And so as I joined the learning organization, one of the primary reasons why I left sales and marketing and came over was that there was just, we just didn't have a really good and easy product story to tell. When I was in sales and marketing, I chased numbers for the company. You know, how do we continue to grow? And one of those things is we have a lot of ambassadors that are potentially out there interacting with their neighbors and their families and friends, you know, people at the grocery. And, you know, how can we arm them with the ability to speak to our products, you know, confidently and with ease? Consistent baseline knowledge for all of our frontline employees. So, you know, we're knocking doors every day. Well, we used to pre-COVID. You know, we have retail stores all over the country, call centers. We interact with a lot of people every day, and how do we make sure that all our new employees have a consistent baseline of knowledge? And if you sit in our footprint, you know, we're always evolving our product suite. One, to stay competitive. Two, to just provide more entertainment and connectivity to all of our existing employee or customers. And so we also have to make sure that we're keeping our incumbent employees up to speed with new information and in an easy way to kind of understand the enhancements that we're making to our product suite and solutions. And so as we think about the reality of what I inherited coming in here, and we're going to flip over to the next slide here, there were a couple of things that were really interesting. And if you know our story, we were, at the time when I joined, we were way more than 3 divisions, but we've simplified since then to 3 divisions. We have 16 regions. You know, we were a cable company starting in Tupelo, Mississippi, and we acquired a lot of companies along the way and grew our footprint. And a part of that was, you know, creating those regions. We have several channels, sub-channels, which, you know what, required over 64 unique new hire journeys. So every employee that would join our space, whether you were a frontline employee or one of our corporate or office headquarters or division office employees, you received different knowledge about our products. We had new retail stores, and we were transforming our customer experience. We were transforming our product experience, delivering things in new ways, a new way to think about it. In the time that I transitioned from Comcast marketing over to the university, we actually even launched a new brand where our Comcast cable became Xfinity. And our customers had a higher expectation. The competitive landscape was immense and intense. And with new ways to consume and new players coming and entering, you know, it wasn't just about the competitors that we were used to in satellite, but, you know, now we have our Apple TVs and Roku's and just so many different ways, and consumers' habits around how they view have changed. And so it became hard. I mean, our content was duplicated a lot of places. There were inconsistent messages. It was scattered everywhere. And more than everything, and I think from learning and development folks, you guys all know, there's always limited time for training, right? It's costly, you know, whether you're trying to do mandatory training or make training that's not mandatory but that people desire to want to take. There's always limited time for that training. There's way more things we want to communicate than we have the ability to really pack into the time that we're allowed. And so that gives us to our current reality and why we sought the support of David and his wonderful team to help us transform our story. David, I'll hand it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. And we'll hear some more as we go through, hear about how that transformation actually happened. So that's where Xfinity was, where Comcast was when Christy started them on this new path. Like she said, they asked us to help them open that box for tens of thousands of people. And where we started was empathy. Empathy is recognizing and sharing and imagining another person's feelings and perspectives. I argue that the most important skill you can have as a trainer is empathy. We're trying to train someone. We're trying to teach someone. Who are they? And this is not just defining your average audience, which as trainers we do. This is actually trying to feel the world from their unique perspective. Our job as trainers is to meet our audience where they are. It is not their job to take our training. It's our job to connect them to something they need. It's our job actually to convince them that we have something and not just a hopeless amount of spiders. So at first, it might seem kind of obvious putting the learner at the center. But I've seen enough content that seems to actively ignore the reality of its audience that I know it is not obvious. I've seen compliance and code of conduct training that is generic, bland, and boring. I've seen product training that is simply a list of features and not about helping an actual customer. I've seen diversity and inclusion training that defines terms but just kind of leaves you with a what now feeling. And I've seen a lot of new employee onboarding that just falls flat. So by saying out loud that we start with empathy, we're stating that we will work for the learner. We will be their advocates. It's especially helpful when we're working with stakeholders and subject matter experts, because so many of them think success is simply transferring all the information in their heads, just get it out, put it in front of people. It doesn't matter how it lands, what it looks like, how it works. So at Comcast, to stay on track, what we did is we invented the shortest possible description of our goals. We were asked to look at the product training strategy, and we said, okay, you know what? Instead of training products, we want to transform that. We want to train possibilities. We want to train how the products work together to connect customers to what they love. So we knew who we were advocating for, and we knew by doing that, by putting ourselves in their space, by putting them at the center, we knew this is what they needed. And it became our guiding light. It became our mission as we built the program. It helped us convince the numerous stakeholders, and there are many, many, many of them at a company the size of Comcast with many different product lines, many different subject matter experts. This was our articulation of the vision. We could say, we have a mission here. We have a plan that would work. By actually practicing empathy for our audience, we extended that, and we were actually led us to empathy for their audience, the customer. So we decided to elevate the customer perspective in everything we did, even here, linking it to our learning objectives, so that learning had a purpose here. It had a purpose for the learner. And we recognized that our learners needed structure, a repeatable pattern no matter what the product, something that they could come to expect and be comfortable with and know what's coming, and we could build credibility with them. So we wanted to build a shallow ramp up for people who didn't know a lot, but also a complete path to mastery for people who need to go deep. We had multiple audiences, so we're caring for the training that everyone should get versus just the frontline people talking to customers, and also realizing that even if you're not talking to customers, going deeper is sometimes appropriate. So I'm going to hand it back to Christy to describe the program and what it achieved.
David. And so that's exactly what we did. We said, hey, we know that we aren't here to do a lot of mandatory. We have enough compliance training that's out there, to stay within the reins of, what we need to do from a corporate entity. And so how do we make product training digestible? How do we make it fun? And so we did a tiered approach, and I would say before I even go there, make it consistent. So my responsibility wasn't to train all the way down to how the tech installs, but how can I create as much consistency up to a point where the technical departments and our care departments and our sales departments have the ability to nuance in their function. And so we created a base framework that David eloquently described, and it comes with this essentials video. It's motion graphics, it's high energy, it's fun. It unpacks, so it's not just kind of teaching about the features and the benefits, but it brings it to life in a way that takes something that is really about cable and about Xfinity and transitions it to real life, real world experiences. And the goal there was just to create broad-based awareness. This is for anyone, any one of our 80,000 employees can take this, learn something, and walk away with some basic understanding. And then building from that, these are all, and I should mention, these are always less than 2 minutes. So they're snackable, and I always call stackable. We tier that up to a basics, and every product will get a basics as well. These are usually digital. They might have a supplementary huddle that a team leader, a supervisor, a manager can leverage. And this is really to start down that pathway of creating proficiency, taking you above kind of the basic understanding and even the excitement about the product, and teaching you some of the key features and the benefits, tying it to the segments. And we don't teach the segments, but we bring the customers to life so that we're showing how these products work in the homes, various family situations, various product constructs, because we stopped selling products and we started really selling solutions to our customers, and we needed a way to transfer that information. The next tier of this became our Connect, because we knew that every interaction with the customer is an important opportunity to connect and to demonstrate what this product or this solution can do for them. how do we help our employees position the products together and match those two customers' needs, their need states? You know, you're hearing these context clues. Now, how do you connect the dots between all of our various products, solutions, features, apps, and make it come to life? So, and then it gives some basic understandings around how to handle objections. So this isn't going deep, meaning, you know, we'll have more deeper for our sales agents, but this is to give a baseline to all employees to handle the common objections that we know for our customers. And then last but not least, we layered on what we're calling these explorers, and it's a series, a library of micro-learnings, all about helping our employees become storytellers. Is it cool technology? Is it a cool app? It's, you know, what's the newest? What's the hottest? What are the things that would be those triggers emotionally that customers may have that we want to do a little bit of a deeper dive on? Or it could be new skills that we need to build or new abilities that we need to build, and we want to do it in a short, bite-sized, snackable way because data is telling us that maybe we're seeing a need, a new need, an emerging need, and we want to double down on that. And so this became the basic construct for how we work to deliver learning so that we had a consistent approach. It wasn't 45 minutes of seat time. We can give it, tailor it, make it as big, make it as small, make it as consistent as we needed it to be for a general onboarding for someone in our legal department or in our finance department, as well as being able to provide the baseline tactics that would be the springboard for all of our functional new hire journeys, so everyone had a consistent story to tell about our products and services. And so as we think of how this all worked, it was really about elevating our game. We wanted to achieve alignment in our go-to-market process. So like, you know, the key tenets to making this a repeatable and scalable structure is we needed to align across all of our business units on that story. You know, what are the consistent stories we wanted to tell? You know, how do we get all of our employees to one set of tactics versus the various ways that they may want to go and where to consume and be a source of truth? We created a consistent brand and product story. So, I mean, it's not just about the learning that we created. It was about synchronizing the organization so that we were all singing from a similar sheet of music and creating a single source of truth within our LMS. And so it's a one destination, it's a one-stop shop, it's where you go to keep everything up to date, and then it became where all the core assets would live that would be the building blocks for any functional journeys and pathways that we would take. And then it was about creating the space to learn and a culture for learning. And it took transitioning and elevating the product and starting with the empathy around how we were delivering it so that we were inventing the opportunity versus forcing our employees to consume the educational elements that we were creating. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dave.
Great. Thanks. So there was a great deal of time and thought and discussion and work that went into that, you know, over time. And that product strategy continues to evolve and adapt, and we'll get into a little bit of that later. But it really did start with forcing ourselves to look at the world from a different perspective. Not what I need them to know, what they need to know, that kind of thing. Empathy, it led us, and it does lead us to deliberate choices that put the learner at the center of every decision we make. Empathy is like saying to our learners, I see you. You can trust me. And when we get empathy right, our audience comes along. They came along. Less mandatory training, more completions, more people buying in, more people saying, yeah, this helps me. So our first key, empathy, so we've been talking about, it connects us as trainers and as teachers to our audience. The second key, which is engagement, connects the audience to our message, to the things they really need. At Sublime, our core philosophy is to prioritize engagement in order to make training effective. Training is a conversation we're having with learners but we rarely get to be in the room. Our work, the courses, the materials, the assets, the plan, it has to do the work for us. I'm actually really happy to see the idea that training is both an intellectual and emotional experience as a growing trend in our industry. I'm looking forward to seeing it grow and more people realizing this. So let's talk about engagement. The most obvious part of engaging learners is building excitement through design. And just going to say this, design matters, especially good design. Design absolutely matters. Design matters because training is more than information, and it's more than just information transfer. If just transmitting information worked, we are all done. We can type up everything we know, we can mail it out to people, send them emails, great, donuts for everyone, training is over. But we know that's not true. Training is so much more than transmitting information. Training is telling a story, and specifically training is telling your story. And design is the way we tell it. So the way training feels, the way it sounds, the way it looks, the way it moves, the way it works, it all matters. Learners today are not the learners of 20 years ago. They're not the learners of 5 years ago. They are demanding consumer-level experiences. Our learners are web savvy. They go home and they have great web experiences, and they expect that at work too. You don't need to create VR roller coasters. There's plenty of room for that kind of really high-end stuff. You don't need to make all your training into that, but you should try to meet these consumer-level expectations. So look, there's a difference between endless screens that look like this, and we have all seen these in person over webinars like this, and in online training. There's a big difference between this, and I'm going to play you 45 seconds of the video. Karen, if you could bring that video up, it has sound, so I'm just going to play it through. It's the same content, but go ahead and play that. We can make that bigger. There we go. And start that from the beginning. Thank you. Thanks, Karen. We can go back to the deck. That actually is a good example of when Christy was talking about the essentials video. It feels very much like that. The information, and I didn't show you the whole thing, but it goes on for about another minute. The information was the same, but it felt very different, and therefore it has a different meaning, even if the facts are the same. So that the video is from the Explore series. It's very much, like I said, like an Essentials video, but it's from our Explore series. We've used this kind of video a lot. And the Explores are short micro-learnings, and they start with a video, and then we follow up with just the most reinforcement, the most important reinforcement. And I'm talking like a few slides. These are online courses. It's a few slides of information. They have a structure. They have a pattern. They have a rhythm. You watch this, and when we tell you the 4 things you need to know, not 5, 4, because I don't want to overwhelm you, and I want you to know what's coming next, and I want to use that as a forcing function when we're collecting our information. What are these 4 things? So these modules are very focused, and everything about them, and everything about all the training we're doing, it feels very Xfinity. And you'll notice I'm using that word "feel" a lot, and that's on purpose. Everything we do for Xfinity is a reflection of their brand. Comcast spends a lot of time and a lot of money deciding how to talk to customers. And I'm sure that, many of the places that all of you work at, they do the same thing. Very careful about talking to customers. That same care should be put into how we talk to employees when we're doing training. Like I said, every one of you work for some place that has a voice, a brand. It's a personality. Use it. Lean into it. Take a look at your new hire training. Does it feel like you? Does it feel like the place you work at? I really do cringe when I see like the most eager audience you'll ever meet is new hire. Just got a new job. I'm ready for this. And then we just put this dull, generic stuff in front of them, and that statistic about people not being emotionally committed to their job or what they're doing, it starts to make sense. Ask yourself, how is your training different from competitors' training? You're probably both doing D&I training and compliance training and product training and all this stuff. How do you know which one's which? What is your point of view? How will the learners know who's speaking? Good design, and here I'm talking about instructional, visual, motion, interactive. That's your voice. It carries the message. That's why I'll say it again. Design absolutely matters when it comes to training. So I want to go back to something I just said, which is the Explore modules are short. And Christy mentioned this too, short. This is a most definite trend we're seeing everywhere. The Explorers are all under 5 minutes. We go 3 to 5 minutes. Our Essentials videos are 2 minutes. We do training longer than that. But so much of it is, as Christy said, snackable and stackable, modular. And we try to make these, like our Explorers, it's by rule. That's why there's only 4 things. I want to keep them short. Now, trust me, we have way more than 5 minutes of content. And our subject matter experts have way more than 5 minutes of content to put in there. But we embrace that time constraint because it makes our storytelling better. It's also much harder to ignore, right? I got to finish 60 minutes of training? Yeah, that's going to sit on my to-do list for a while. You need 3 minutes? I got 3 minutes? Sure, I'll do it. And, it's funny because many people don't have to commute into an office right now, but it seems that we have less time than ever to do things. So micro-learning, nano-learning, snackable learning, whatever you want to call it, try it. It is a credibility builder. Now, it's harder than it sounds. When you have 30 minutes, and it's a 30-minute course, that's a lot of words. I don't have to edit. I can just put it all in there. Try writing for 3 minutes. The constraints are hard, but they help. Try writing for 1 minute. Pull that word count down. You'll find out immediately what's important. There are questions that we're constantly asking our clients, and I use these with subject matter experts all the time. The first one is it right? Are we being factually correct? Because I don't want to tell anyone anything wrong, obviously. And number 2, do we have what we need? Are we missing anything? Right? Like I gotta make sure the whole story's there. Number 3, though, the hardest question you can ask a subject matter expert: do we need what we have? How much can we get rid of? I've been doing a lot of gardening in my quarantine, and I've learned that pruning is as much a part of a successful garden as planting seeds. And it comes down to this: when they need to dig a hole, just give them a shovel. Don't give them a history of hole digging. It sounds funny until you remember that anti-corruption course you took that starts with the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890-something. Being short is one of the best ways that you can be useful. Excitement, I started with excitement as a part of engagement. This is the other part. It's usefulness is expressing our empathy. It's that imagination to provide what the learner needs before they even know they need it. It's telling them, we've cleared a path for you. I know where you need to go. I will help you get there. In the content that we make, being useful means that realizing that training is about behavior. Training is about doing things. As a trainer, I ask, how will someone act differently after taking this training? As a learner, I ask, well, what am I getting out of this? What will this new thing do for me? Often ask subject matter experts, what do they need to do with this information you just gave me? It's a super hard question to answer. And if they pause, then I ask, so then do they really need to know it? Like, make a case for it. So I want to show you a few examples now of some of the work that we've done for Comcast, putting all this together. One thing we've been able to do is actually replace a lot of in-person and virtual in-person training with self-paced, because we made them short, because we snackable and stackable, because they're part of a cohesive strategy. We were actually able to put a lot more self-paced out there, and so those are the examples I'm going to show you. And of course, self-paced learning, online digital experiences, e-learning, that's a kind of useful, very relevant for these times of remote work, where in-person classes are not possible, and virtual sessions like these can get a little mind-numbing if you have slides like I showed you before, whereas online learning is scalable, it's repeatable, it's updatable, easy. So let me show you a few examples. First one that I want to show is visual merchandising standards. So Comcast has a bunch of new retail stores. They're really trying to up their game. They used to have more to service centers. Now it's a best of breed retail experience. So that store has to be right. And one of our challenges here was changing training from the back room to the retail floor. So we have people who are used to going into the back storeroom and sharing a computer and taking a course and kind of getting some information separate from their job. So we wanted to put that training on the floor. So what we did is we created what we call the Get Up and Go course. So this course is taken on an iPad, put your headphones in, and you're on the retail floor, and it tours you around the store. We take you to different areas of the store, and we ask you to look at things. Is this right? And you actually answer yes or no. And we're giving you explanations for why it's important and what it should be. You go through these things, and you're on the retail floor, which, by the way, means that if the customer needs help, you can get tapped on the shoulder, you take your headphones off, you're right back to work. You can pick this up and after the customer's there. But you're also immersed in the actual subject matter. Back to that action. This is the thing I need you to do. We take you on a tour through the store. We ask you these questions, and at the end of this course, we'll actually give you a list of the questions you said no to. That is, anything that was not right, that you noted was not right, we're going to give you a list, and it needs to get taken care of. It means every person taking this course is actively actually doing the thing we want them to do, even while they're taking this course. So incredibly useful, and also, you know, that idea of getting training from the back room onto the retail floor, getting them hands-on became very important. Show you another one. So know the basics. Christy talked about this in our model. It's our second. It was our kind of our second tier there. That every major product line got a Know the Basics course, and it's all about what a product does for customers. And I saw in the chat here somebody mentioned that is you know, being customer centric. It's actually it's another difficult choice to make, because especially subject matter experts who are working on a product, they are not thinking of it from the customer point of view. We wanted to make sure that everybody knew that the features of a product exist for a person to use. So we actually start with the customer. We start with that. We actually put that essentials video, and it works very much like the that video I showed you. We start with that, the overall value of the product, what it does, like less than 2 minutes. Some of these are a minute. Feels like a commercial, because commercials, if you think about them, they actually are training. They identify a need, they tell you how to fill the need, and they make you go do something to fill that need. So we embrace the idea that it is a commercial. We then take you on a tour. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you this product from the point of view of many different customers. There's an idea of customer segmentation. It's not something that we in these courses do up front, but we have kind of back-end data about the kinds of customers we have, so we can kind of group them together and tell you their stories. In this case here, we've got some roommates, and they share an internet connection, and they stream, and they're fighting over who gets the TV and things like that. You learn about them by them talking to you. This is what we do. This is our life. We do this in 30 seconds. Now you know a customer. And then we tell you what the product does for that particular customer. So what you're doing here is you're learning product features little by little, and you're seeing how they kind of come together. And at the end, you know what the product does, but more importantly, you know what the product does for customers in total and for specific kinds of customers. And the third one I want to show you is an online course that's also a part of the Explore series, and it's called Words That Work. This is a skill building module, and it came out of another popular trend these days, which is data-driven learning. Right? So research has shown that there are specific ways of talking about the Xfinity mobile product that customers respond to. So, you call up and you hear that this conversation may be recorded. We don't do that just for fun. That means we can tell which phrases are being used. How did that conversation go? Are we using the right phrases? And if you aren't, we can start building those skills. So we knew we had 3 really important phrases, and we made a game of it. 3 levels, each increasing in difficulty. So our first level is we just ask you to listen to some audio, like a snippet of a customer conversation. And we ask you, hey, which phrase did you hear about the network? In this case, it's Xfinity Mobile is on the most reliable wireless network. And there's, I'm not going to go into it here, there's specific reasons why that phrase on the most reliable wireless network is important. So all we're asking you to do is, can you pick it out? And then we move you to level 2. Can you click these things here, and can you build that statement? Can you recreate the phrase if I give you the words of the phrase? It's harder starting from a blank slate, so we give you some hints. And then we ramp it up to another level. Can you write it? I can tell you as someone who knows this content well, this is hard. Sometimes you have to go back and you have to kind of think about that. Oh, what was that phrase again? And that's good, right? That's learning from failure, and that's learning from frustration sometimes, and that's good. That's how learning happens. If you have ever tried a language learning app, you will have already recognized these exercises. This is, if you use Duolingo, is a perfect example of this. They do a lot more repetition because they have a much larger domain to teach to, but they do the same kind of exercises. So that's where we got our inspiration from. We said, what we're going to do, we're going to act like our learners are learning a language. We're going to use the same kinds of things there. So Christy, I'm going to pause here and just give you a couple minutes to kind of talk about the courses we've been building, and then I'll come back to you in just a second. We'll kind of close it up with how the program went.
I will tell you guys that in my history of working at Comcast, I had never heard anyone refer to training as being sexy. When we launched the XFI Know the Basics, our head of consumer services, that was a quote that she made at our all-hands meeting. We were at a position where, we needed to get people to buy into the strategy and, what we were trying to achieve here. To give up power, to allow us into their classrooms, to their employees, and really to buy into our space. And this effort really helped to do that. And we took a lot of marketing speak and brand speak and data and synthesized it in a way that dimensionalized this and brought it to life in new and different ways, where we now have all of our divisions coming to us and asking for this training, which was music to our ears. And I will say that with every one that we've done, we've elevated. So the Words That Work is our first trial. I can't even wait to see what that's going to look like as we do round 2 and round 3 and get the lessons from it. Thanks, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. So I want to show you one more thing, and it's not a course. This is something called DevLearn. So corporate learning ecosystems usually center around large centralized systems, LMSs, right? We're all familiar with LMSs and the compromises they come with. I think the time of monoliths may be over. If you think about the ecosystem you might have on your phone, you don't have one app that does everything. You have specialized apps that do a few things very well. DevLearn is like that. It is like building a corporate learning ecosystem out of small, focused ideas. It collects content. It is a portal to content. It is curated. It's lightweight, mobile-friendly website. It's branded. It's customizable. Easily updatable. In this case, it's actually integrated with Microsoft Stream. So we have a lot of content that we put in Microsoft Stream that just kind of pops up. You don't even have to leave ULearn. But we're pairing it, like ULearn doesn't host the video. We're pairing it with something else that does. And we create individual ULearn hubs. So here, this one on the left that's zoomed out is our product hub that has both mobile and other products on it. And on the right is a D&I portal. So we're able to do that. I have a little screencast of this. Karen, would you just bring up that screencast and play it? It's a little easier to see this in action. I could start that one from the beginning. Yeah, thanks. So this is just a screencast of using it. We've got our advertisements, our highlights up top. And then here we've got organized content. We've got these little carousels that describe the content. If you click play, that video just kind of plays right there. We can organize content. So we've got tabs that we can organize content back and forth and group content. And there's lots of different kinds of content in here. We're linking to games. So here's some games. Again, another platform. We're going to link out to that. We're going to create a whole ecosystem of stuff. We're going to link to the LMS at the bottom there to get stuff. We also built in a very robust search, a search that is more robust than we were able to see in other platforms, where here I'm going to search for X1 and I'm going to refine how exact I want this search to be. And you'll see the results will get tighter and tighter. I can decide what to search. This is inspired by YouTube. So those consumer level experiences, this is very much inspired by, and you can go back to the deck now, Karen, thank you, by YouTube. Something you can browse, something that makes really good suggestions for you, and also you can search. And this is something that wasn't in our original plan. It was part of that evolution of, oh, we need this. We need to be able to get people to our content. We need to be able to use the same piece of content in multiple places. And so that is something now we're continuing to evolve and build more features into it. So everything we create, whether it's the online self-paced courses or ULearn or developed by a leader, delivered virtually, done in person, it's there to empower the learner. It's there to connect them to the larger story and purpose. As the training strategy caught on, as people saw it was working, our mission expanded, and we were able to align different parts of the business together. Things like ULearn were now possible. We gained credibility and trust. That's a large part of our job, if we want to do it right, is to get people on our side. And so, Christy, I'm going to bring you back one last time just to talk about all that now of just kind of aligning the businesses, where we are now, and what we've gained.
No, thanks, David. And David was spot on. You know, I think when I look at where I was as a business unit and Comcast University supporting me, I wasn't a huge fan. It was one of the main things that made me come over, to help and to support and to drive, acquisition strategies. But I developed and understood something even new and gained so much more out of it. So the way that it's been working is that we've been able to get such a firm seat at the table that we're now sitting at the top end of the funnel. Every time a product is coming to market or even being thought to come to market, we're leading the foundational knowledge and the strategy. What are the behaviors that we're needing to change and to modify? And then wrapping that with marketing and with product experiences teams that really help give us all the things that we need to bring it to life. And so we were able to organize all of the various units to really create an ecosystem, because it's not just about that class, and I'm using the classroom experience loosely. It's not just about that self-directed learning. It's all the different touch points. I mean, everybody learns in so many various ways, and your employee communications, our information, our employees are getting information through those mechanisms. And so ensuring that we were setting a broad strategy, we were definitely leading in and developing kind of our traditional tactics, and not so traditional tactics, but the things that we were driving, but they're supported by now an entire marketing force and product experience team that now supplements and creates the ongoing drumbeat, so that it takes it beyond that one time, one instance of learning. And we're bringing in the connection. How do we get our leaders to activate this? Become torchbearers. How do we reward? So every bite-sized learning, like we need to create some intrinsic motivation, and having bite-sized learning and modular components helped us do that. Peer connections. How do we start learning and bringing some of our new assets, or bringing our people's peers in? Let's hear from the sales agent what's working from them and get it from their voice in the similar ways that we're doing with our customers. And then what we're adding in is measuring kind of the business drivers and results, through the traditional knowledge assessments and seeing how we're moving the KPIs. But we're also, because of all of the work and the synchronization, we're able to now create some additional feedback loops through our Frontline Insights panel. And what we'll be kicking off in the beginning of the year is a company-wide survey just about product, and seeing what people know that's repeatable at the top and back half of every quarter. And that way we're always assessing where are the knowledge gaps so that we know where we need to drive for reinforcement. And so how do we know that this is working? We know it's working because you saw what David showed earlier, our increased completion rates. I mean, this is not mandatory training, guys. This is just stuff that's out there. And we have seen it go up 4 times. And if you saw the trends that we have for 2020, it's even topping where we were for 2019. We've seen an increase in budget. People have thrown money. We can't even keep up with the volume of requests that are coming in because people are desiring the work that we're doing. And it's all because we've increased satisfaction, whether we're seeing that through the ENPS scores that we're receiving on our courses, or through our Frontline Insights and panels. But the work is happening, as well as our business results. I mean, our product lines are thrilled with the movement that they've seen, and the shift from I'm selling a bunch of lines of business to I'm selling experiences to our company, or to our customers, and this work helped to make that transition possible. And I'll hand it over to you, David, to close us out.
I think one of the most exciting things, and it's not something we often get to see, is training leading the way. Is training actually being a forcing function for the organization to make all of this happen, to make the alignment happening. And it's very exciting to see that happen in real time. So in closing, what I hope I've shown you today is that rooting our program in empathy, prioritizing engagement, the result is that we showed learners how much we care, and they return the feeling. That's what we're after, and we've seen it happen. We are making more authentic connections. We're eliminating skill gaps. We're getting people excited. We're getting people on board, and so that's what I'm here for. I'm here to tell all of you. I'm here to tell anyone who'll listen. Find every unopenable box. Craft the keys to open it. You can do it, and when it's done, there are much fewer spiders. There's less poking of the eyes. You turn that feeling of training dread into gratitude, into thankfulness, into effectiveness. So again, thank you for your time today. We're Sublime Media, again, the creative agency for learning. You can visit our website at sublimemedia.com. Like I said, everything we do is custom, so it's hard for me to show off our work, and thank you so much for Comcast and Christy for letting us show off little bits of it. So we'd love to talk with you about your specific challenges and your problems and your successes, and there's more we can show about how we can solve those. So we look forward to talking with you, and that is our session today. Karen, I'll hand it back to you in case there are any questions. We've got just a few minutes.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Christy, for sharing what has happened at Comcast. It was really great to see all the microlearning going on, the levels of complexity. I know there were a couple comments in the chat. I don't see any questions, just some great comments in chat. So thank you, David and Christy. And as a reminder, this has been session 201, Empathy, Engagement, and Effectiveness. And there is also session 301 and 401 for today, and then we have 4 additional sessions for tomorrow, Thursday, December 3rd.